I was on the phone with 911 when the bathroom vent shook. Not once, not a rattle, like someone grabbed it from the other side. I saw the screw turn, just a little. I whispered, "He's in the vents." And behind me, the chain bracket cracked, the front door jumped inward, and a voice on the other side said, "Now open it."
Recovered tape number 01. Intake log. Label 3B/618. Recovered from a residential building hallway. Location, Columbus, Ohio. One adult male voice. Audio partially degraded. Playback begins now.
I moved in on a Monday. Nothing dramatic, no haunted house nonsense. Just a tired beige apartment in a tired beige building that smelled faintly like old carpet and someone's cooking that never really aired out. It was cheap, close to work, and the leasing office didn't ask too many questions as long as the deposit cleared. I was new to the building, new to the neighborhood, and, if I'm being honest, new to the idea of living completely alone. The first night I slept with the TV on, volume low, not because I was afraid, but because the silence in an unfamiliar place feels louder than noise. By the end of the first week, I had a routine. I didn't even notice I'd built it until I saw it written out in my own handwriting. Alarm at 5:40, shower, coffee, out the door by 6:25, down the stairs, past the mailboxes, out into the lot. 10 minutes to the warehouse, clock in at 6:50, home around 4:30, give or take depending on traffic. Same times, same steps, same pauses. The kind of routine you don't think about until someone else does. It started small. On Thursday, my phone rang at 6:18 a.m. No caller ID. I stared at it while the screen glowed in the dark, waiting for it to stop. It rang long enough that it could have gone to voicemail, but it didn't. Whoever it was hung up first. I checked the call log. Nothing else. No voicemail. Just unknown at 6:18. I shrugged it off. Spam calls happen. Wrong numbers happen. The next morning, Friday, it happened again. 6:18 a.m. Unknown. Same length. Same silence. Hung up before voicemail. I'd been awake both times, lying in bed and waiting for my alarm. It was early enough that I hadn't moved around yet, early enough that I hadn't made any sound. Still, the timing bothered me. Saturday and Sunday, no call. On Monday, exactly 1 week after I moved in, my phone rang at 6:18 again. This time I answered. I don't know why. Maybe because it was the fourth time. Maybe because part of me wanted it to be something boring so I could stop thinking about it. I pressed the phone to my ear and said, "Hello?" There was nothing for a second. Just the faint hiss you get when a line is open but nobody's speaking. Then a sound, low and close, like someone shifting their weight. And then, quietly, someone breathed. Not a deep breath, not a cough. A slow inhale and exhale, controlled, like they knew I was listening. My skin tightened in a way I can't explain. I pulled the phone away and looked at the screen like it might give me an answer. It just said, "Unknown." I said louder, "Who is this?" Nothing. I could still hear the faint hiss, the line open, the sound of a presence. And then it clicked off. I sat there for a full minute staring at the wall, waiting for the adrenaline to fade, telling myself it was a prank or a wrong number or someone who didn't mean anything by it. But the time stuck in my head. 6:18. It wasn't random. It was too exact. That night I wrote it down on a piece of paper and taped it above my desk, along with my shift schedule for the week. Just a quick note to myself. Unknown calls. 6:18 a.m. It felt ridiculous, like the kind of thing you do when you've watched too many crime shows. I didn't know I was doing something worse. I was making it easier for someone to know what I knew. Tuesday morning, I left the apartment at 6:25 like always. As I locked the door, I heard a soft click from the other side of the hallway. I froze, key still in the lock. For a second I thought it was my imagination, the building settling, pipes, whatever. Then I heard it again. A door latch. Someone closing a door quietly. I turned my head. Across the hall, the door was shut. No light under it. No movement. I didn't even know if anyone lived there yet. I stared at it for a few seconds, trying to decide if I was being paranoid. Then I pulled my key out and started down the stairs. Halfway to the landing, I glanced back. The door across the hall was still closed, but the peephole felt like an eye. All day at work, the time 6:18 and that soft click played on a loop in my head. By the time I got home, I had convinced myself it was nothing. Then I saw the mark on my doormat. It was slight, something most people wouldn't notice. A thin line in the dust, as if someone had dragged the edge of a shoe across the mat and left a faint streak. Not a footprint, not a stain, a deliberate line. I crouched and ran my finger across it. The dust came away clean where the line was. My first thought was stupid. Maybe the maintenance guy stepped on it. My second thought was worse. Maybe someone tested if I'd been home. I stood up and looked down the hallway. It was empty. No footsteps, no voices, just the dull hum of the building. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and locked it behind me. Then I checked the chain. It was on. I made sure of it. That night I moved my chair so I could see the front door from my couch. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was just being cautious until the call stopped. At 11:47 p.m., there was a sound in the wall to my left. Not a bang, not a knock. A light scraping noise, like something brushing the inside of a vent. It lasted 3 seconds, stopped, then started again. Slightly closer, slightly lower. I held my breath. The scraping stopped. For a long time, nothing happened. Then, from the hallway outside my door, I heard the faintest sound of someone standing too close. Not footsteps, just presence. And then, very softly, something touched my door. A tap. Not loud enough to be a knock, just enough to let me know someone could reach it. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The tap happened again, and then the silence returned. I sat there in the dark, staring at the door chain, telling myself I was overreacting, but my eyes kept returning to the same thought. Someone knew my schedule, and they were getting closer. Tuesday night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the same things in my head. The calls at 6:18, the line in the dust on my mat, the scraping in the vent, the soft taps on my door like someone testing how close they could get without being heard. By morning, I felt ridiculous. Tired makes you paranoid. New buildings make weird noises. Spam callers breathe into phones. People bump doors in hallways. All of it had an explanation if I forced myself to accept one. I tried to act normal. At 6:12 a.m., I was already dressed, coffee in my hand, standing at my desk. My phone sat face up beside the paper where I'd written the time down. The note looked stupid in daylight. I stared at it anyway. 6:18. When my phone rang, my stomach dropped before the screen even lit up. Unknown. 6:18. I didn't answer. I watched it ring out. No voicemail, no follow-up. Just that one call, perfectly timed. I took a photo of the call log with my other hand, like that would make it more real. Like a screenshot could turn a feeling into evidence. Then I ripped the paper off the wall. I don't know why. Maybe it was the first rational thought I'd had. If someone was watching me, I didn't want my schedule and my panic notes taped up where they could be seen from the hallway if my door ever opened. I folded it, shoved it into a drawer, and told myself I was done feeding it. At 6:25, I stepped out and locked my door. The hallway was empty. I started down the stairs and didn't look back. When I came home that afternoon, the first thing I noticed was that my doormat was clean. Not someone vacuumed the hallway clean. Clean like someone had brushed it with a hand. The dust line from yesterday was gone. In its place was a fresh, faint streak, slightly curved this time, like a half moon. It was subtle, almost artistic. I stood there too long staring at it, keys in my hand, until a door opened somewhere below, and I flinched like I'd been caught doing something wrong. I went inside and locked up. That evening I forced myself to go get the mail. It was a stupid test. A way to prove to myself I wasn't scared of a hallway. The mailboxes were at the bottom of the stairs, in a narrow area with bad lighting. I could hear the building's heater clicking on and off. I could smell someone's laundry soap and old paper. As I sorted through junk flyers, I heard a door open above me. Slow, careful, not like someone coming home with groceries. I paused. The footsteps didn't come down. They just moved along the landing, then stopped. I waited, holding the mail against my chest, listening hard enough that my ears started to ring. Nothing. Then, from above, a voice called out, casual, almost friendly. "Hey, you the new guy in 3B?" I looked up the stairwell. A man leaned slightly over the railing, keeping most of his body back in the shadows. I couldn't see his face clearly from where I stood, just the outline of his head and shoulders. "Yeah," I said. My throat felt dry. "Yeah, that's me." He nodded like he'd expected that answer. "I'm in 3C, he said. "Right across." Across. The door with the peephole that felt like an eye. "Okay," I said. He held the railing with one hand, still not coming down, still keeping distance like he didn't want to look threatening. "Place isn't too loud, is it?" he asked. "Some people complain about the pipes." "No," I said quickly. "It's fine." He paused. Then he smiled. At least I think he smiled. It was hard to tell from the angle. His voice stayed light. "You work early or something? I hear you leave before the sun's up." My pulse jumped. It was an innocent question, a normal neighbor question, but it landed in my chest like a weight. I should have lied. I should have shrugged and said I had weird hours, nothing consistent. Instead, I did what people do when they want to seem normal. "Yeah," I said. "Warehouse. I'm out by like 6:25, most days." The words left my mouth and immediately felt wrong. He nodded again like he was filing it away. "Got it," he said, and then, still calm, still friendly, he added one more thing. "Just so you know, if you ever hear anything at night, it's probably just me. I'm up late." He said it like a courtesy, like a warning disguised as politeness. I forced a laugh that didn't sound like mine. "Okay," I said. He stepped back from the railing and disappeared from view. I went back up the stairs slowly, mail clenched in my hand, mind racing. Across the hall, he knew when I left. And now he knew I left at 6:25 because I had just told him. That night I didn't turn on the TV. I sat in silence and listened. At 6:18 in the morning, my phone didn't ring. Instead, at exactly 6:25, there was a sound outside my door. Not a knock, not footsteps. A quiet, deliberate click, like someone testing a handle without committing to it. Once, then again, and then nothing. I stood frozen in my kitchen, staring at the door, and finally understood what I'd done. The calls weren't the point. They were practice. He was practicing timing, and I had just made it easier. After the handle clicks, I didn't leave. I stood in my kitchen, coffee in my hand. I stared at the door. I waited for another sound. Nothing came. No knock, no footsteps, no voices, just silence. It felt intentional, like the point wasn't getting in, like the point was letting me know he could touch my door whenever he wanted. I called in sick. I told myself it was one day. Just one. I needed a reset. I needed to think clearly. But the truth was simpler. I couldn't picture myself walking down the stairs while someone across the hall listened for my lock. So I stayed home. I sat on the couch. I watched the strip of light under the door change as the morning passed. I checked my call log again, then again, like a new answer would appear. At 9:06 a.m., I heard something outside. A soft scrape, then a faint thud. It sounded like paper on carpet. I got up fast. I moved toward the door. Then I stopped. I didn't touch the chain. I didn't open anything. I just listened. Nothing. No steps leaving. No door closing. No elevator. Nothing that explained it. I leaned into the peephole. The hallway was empty. Then I looked down. A folded piece of paper was pushed under my door. Not all the way. Just enough for the corner to show. I crouched. I pulled it in. Slow. Careful. It was a page torn from a cheap notepad. One sentence, written neatly. You didn't go to work today. No name, no signature, no extra words. Just a fact. My mouth went dry, because it meant he was paying attention. Not later, not after I left. Since morning, close enough to know I hadn't stepped out at the exact time. I took a photo of the note, then another, closer, then a third, with the time on my phone in frame. I didn't call the police. I hate that, but I couldn't imagine the conversation. My neighbor wrote a note. He knows I stayed home. There was no break-in, no weapon, no crime they'd take seriously. They'd tell me to lock my door, maybe recommend a camera. Then they'd leave, and I'd still be here, across from him. Around noon, I checked the locks again. Deadbolt, chain, handle, solid. That should have helped. It didn't. I noticed the metal plate around the latch, the area where the bolt meets the frame. There were fresh scratches, thin, bright lines, paint scraped away. Too clean to be normal wear, too focused to be accidental. I knelt and looked closer. The marks clustered in one spot, like someone pressed something there more than once. Not a full pry, not a break-in. Testing. Then I saw another mark, higher up, near the chain bracket. A faint crescent in the metal, like something hard had pushed against it from the outside. My stomach turned. A copied key was one thing. The chain was different. The chain was the last line, and now it looked like someone was learning how it worked. That night I kept the note on my table. I didn't throw it away. I needed it to stay real. I needed evidence to exist. At 1:13 a.m., the scraping in the wall came back. Not a quick sound, not a random brush. It was steady, patient. Plastic against plastic. Pause, then again. I got out of bed. I stood in front of the vent in my bedroom. The grill looked normal, but there was dust on the floor beneath it. A light sprinkle. It wasn't there before. I didn't touch the vent. I backed away. I locked my bedroom door. That felt stupid. A thin interior door wouldn't stop anyone, but it was the only thing I could do. In the morning before work, I went to a hardware store. I bought a cheap door camera, the kind that connects to your phone, the kind you can mount in minutes. To the cashier, it was a normal purchase. To me, it felt like admitting I was in trouble. I carried the box up the stairs. Across the hall, his door was shut. No light under it, no sound. Still, I had that same feeling, like he knew what I was holding. Inside my apartment, I opened the box. I mounted the camera above my peephole. I adjusted the angle until the hallway filled the screen. My door, the landing, his door across from mine, clear, quiet, empty. For the first time since I moved in, I could watch back. That night I sat on the couch, phone in my hand, live feed on the screen. I checked the locks twice. Chain, deadbolt, handle. Then I waited. At 11:52 p.m., the feed flickered. Not a normal glitch, not compression blur. A brief block, like something moved close and covered the lens for a second. Then it cleared. The hallway was empty again. The timestamp kept counting, and I understood something simple. He'd seen the camera, and he wanted me to know it. I didn't sleep after the flicker. I kept the live feed open on my phone. I watched the empty hallway until my eyes hurt. Nothing else happened. No footsteps, no doors. Just that quiet view and the timestamp moving forward like a metronome. In the morning, I checked the recording. The app had saved a short clip from 11:52 p.m. I replayed it again and again. The first half second was normal. Then the screen went dark, like something flat had covered the lens. Not a shadow, not a person walking past. A full block. Then the picture came back, and for one frame, right before it cleared, I saw a detail. A hand. Not a full face, not a body. Just fingers and part of a wrist, close enough that the camera couldn't focus. The skin looked pale under the hallway light. The nails were short. There was a dark mark near the knuckle, like a bruise or a stain. It wasn't proof of who it was, but it was proof of intent. Someone moved right up to my door. Someone put a hand on my camera, and they did it slowly enough to make sure it registered. I went to work anyway. I told myself I couldn't keep hiding in my apartment. I told myself staying home was what he wanted. I left at my usual time, 6:25. Same lock, same stairs. All day I felt exposed. Every time my phone buzzed, I thought it was motion on the camera. It wasn't. When I got home, I checked the doormat again. This time it wasn't just a line. There was a small pinch in the corner, like someone had lifted it and put it back down. The dust pattern under it looked disturbed. Not messy, just touched. I didn't crouch. I didn't test it with my finger. I went inside and locked the door. Chain, deadbolt, handle. Then I opened the camera app and stared at the hallway. At 9:41 p.m., I got the first real alert. Motion detected. The live feed showed the hallway, empty at first. Then the picture shifted slightly. The camera didn't move. The scene changed because someone stepped into frame. A figure stood across the hall, right in front of 3C. He was half turned away. The hood of a sweatshirt was up, or maybe it was just shadow. I couldn't see his face. I didn't need to. He didn't open his door. He just stood there for a few seconds, like he was listening. Then he leaned toward my door, not all the way, just enough to get close. Then he stepped back out of frame. No knock, no words. A minute later, I heard his door close. Soft, controlled. The feed stayed quiet. I sat there with my phone in my hand, waiting for the next alert. My thumb hovered over the record button like I could catch him by pressing it at the right moment. At 11:17 p.m., another alert hit. Motion detected. The figure was closer this time. He was on my side of the hallway, standing at my door. The camera showed his shoulder and part of his arm. His head was out of frame because he was too close. He lifted a hand toward my peephole. Not the camera, the peephole. Like he was checking if he could see inside. Then his hand shifted up. The feed went dark again. The same flat block. This time it lasted longer, 2 full seconds. Then the picture came back. And he was still there. He hadn't jumped away. He hadn't panicked. He stayed close, like he wanted me to understand something. He lowered his hand. He stood still for another second. Then he walked out of frame. I didn't move the entire time. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't make noise. I just watched the timestamp and waited for another alert. None came. I replayed both clips and saved them to my phone. I named the files with the timestamps. It felt stupid. It felt necessary. Then I heard the vent. It was after midnight. 12:38. A scrape behind the wall. Slow. Repeating. Like someone was dragging something along the inside, then stopping, then doing it again. I stared at the vent in my bedroom. The grill looked the same, but one screw in the corner sat slightly crooked. Not falling out, just not flush like the others. I hadn't noticed that before. I walked closer, slow, and looked at the edge of the metal. There was a thin line of fresh dust on the paint, like something had been rubbed there, like the grill had been shifted and set back. I stepped away. I didn't touch it. Not yet. I went back to the living room and checked the camera feed again. The hallway was empty, but the thought didn't leave my head. He wasn't just watching my schedule anymore. He was testing my door. He was touching my camera, and something in my wall was changing. I sat on the couch with my phone in my hand until 2 a.m. Then I made a decision that felt calm in the moment and stupid the second I thought about it. I decided I would stay one more night. Not to be brave, not to prove anything, to record it, to catch a clean moment on camera, a clear clip, a clear time, something that would force the situation to become real. And as I stared at the live feed, waiting for the next alert, I knew the risk. If he understood the camera, then he understood my plan, and he might decide to move faster. I kept the live feed open until my phone hit 5%. Nothing moved in the hallway. No alerts, no flicker. Just an empty frame and the timestamp. At 2:11 a.m., I finally put the phone on the charger and sat on the couch in the dark. I didn't go to bed. I didn't want to be in my bedroom near the vent. At 2:38 a.m., I heard it. A scrape behind the wall. It dragged, stopped, then dragged again. Same spot, same rhythm. Not pipes, not the building settling. It sounded like someone working at it. I held my breath. Then I heard a second sound. A tiny tick, like a screw turning a fraction. That got me off the couch. I walked to the bedroom and stopped in front of the vent. From across the room, it looked normal. Up close, one corner wasn't sitting right. The screw wasn't falling out, but it wasn't tight either. I didn't touch it at first. I just stood there, waiting for the scrape to come back. Nothing. I grabbed a kitchen towel and wrapped it around my fingers. Then I pressed lightly on the grill. It shifted. Not much. Just enough to tell me it wasn't seated properly. My throat went dry. I backed up and looked at the floor. There was more dust than before. A thin trail, like something had been rubbed along the inside edge. And in the dust was a darker smear, like dirt from a hand. Then I noticed the smell, not rot, not gas, just warm, stale air, like breath trapped where it shouldn't be. My skin crawled. I didn't take the grill off. I didn't want to see what was behind it. I also didn't want to leave it loose, so I did the dumb thing. I tightened the screw. I turned it through the towel, slow enough not to slip. Half a turn, then another. The metal squeaked. The scraping stopped. For a second, everything went quiet. Then the wall scraped again. One long pull, like an answer. I froze, hand still near the vent, then stepped back fast. In the living room, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I grabbed it and stared at the feed. The hallway was empty. No person, no shadow. Then, at the very bottom of the frame, right near my door, something moved. A thin strip of paper slid into view and stopped. I didn't move. I watched it sit there, like whoever pushed it wanted me to see it and react. Then it slid again, a little farther, clearing the door enough to read. The alert ended. I didn't open the door. I didn't even go near it. I waited another full minute. Then I took my umbrella and used the hook to pull the paper in from a distance. It was another torn page from the same kind of notepad. This one had 2 lines. Your camera works. Open the door.
Recovered tape number 01. Mid-log. Timestamp unknown. New material referenced. Handwritten note. Your camera works. Open the door. Audio dropouts increase after this point. Playback resumes now.
My chest tightened hard. Not a joke. Not a warning. A demand. I took photos. My hands shook enough that the first one came out blurred. Then my phone buzzed again. Motion detected. I looked at the live feed. He was there, right at my door, so close the camera couldn't frame him properly. I saw his shoulder, his arm, and the side of his head. Hood up, face turned away. He leaned toward my peephole again, like he was checking if I'd moved. Then he lowered his head close to the door, and I heard his voice through the wood. Not loud, not angry, like he was talking to someone sitting right next to him. Open up! My stomach dropped. He wasn't yelling to scare me. He sounded calm, like this was normal. Like he expected me to do what he said. I didn't answer. I didn't breathe. He stayed there for a moment. Then his hand came up, and the camera feed went dark. 1 second. 2. When it cleared, he was gone. I waited. I watched the hallway. I watched the timestamp. At 3:04 a.m., the door handle moved. Not a full turn, just a test. Like a hand checking how much it would give. Once, then again, then a pause. Then the deadbolt clicked. A small sound, easy to miss if you weren't listening for it. My body went cold, because I hadn't touched the lock. I didn't move. I stared at the door. The chain was still on. I could see the metal, but the deadbolt had shifted just enough to make that click. I backed away slowly, phone still in my hand, and my eyes went to the vent down the hall. Scrape. A short one this time, right after the click, like he was doing two things at once, or like someone else was. I stood there in the dark, trying to hold on to the simplest version of what was happening. He knew about the camera. He knew I was awake. He wanted me to open the door, and now he was playing with the locks. On my phone screen, the hallway stayed empty, but I could hear him, right on the other side of the door, and somewhere inside the wall. I knew then that one more night was over. This wasn't a game, and it wasn't patience anymore. It was the moment before he decided to come in. I didn't touch the door after the deadbolt click. I stepped back until my shoulder hit the wall. I kept my phone up, live feed open, like it could protect me. The hallway on screen was empty. In real life, the air felt different, like someone was close enough to hear me swallow. I waited for footsteps. Nothing. Then the door handle moved again. Slow this time. Not a quick test. A steady turn, as far as it would go, and then it stopped. The chain held. Metal strained for half a second. Then the pressure released. A quiet exhale came through the door. Not mine. I stayed frozen. A soft tap hit the wood, right near the lock. Not a knock, more like someone's fingernail. Tap, tap. Then his voice again. Low, close. You're right there. My stomach dropped. He wasn't guessing. He wasn't calling out. He was talking to me like he could already see me. I didn't answer. The live feed buzzed. Motion detected. I looked down. The camera showed the edge of his shoulder, just barely in frame. He was standing so close the lens couldn't catch his face. Then the feed went black. Not a glitch. A hand over the lens. I heard the faint scrape of skin on plastic. Then it cleared. The hallway was empty again. He stepped away just long enough for me to see nothing. Then I heard him move back in. I could tell by the sound, a shift of weight, fabric brushing the door. The handle turned again, harder this time. The chain snapped tight, the bracket creaked. I watched it from inside, useless, while the metal took the strain. Then the pressure stopped. Silence. 10 seconds passed. Then a different sound. A small, sharp click from the peephole. like a tool touching metal. I stared at the peephole. Another click, then a scrape, like something thin being worked into the edge. I felt heat rush through my chest. Panic, pure and simple. He wasn't playing with the deadbolt now. He was messing with the peephole. I backed away from the door and moved into the kitchen without thinking. I grabbed the first thing my hand found, a heavy metal flashlight. I didn't own a bat. I didn't own a gun. I had a flashlight from a toolbox. I held it like it mattered. Another scrape at the peephole. Then the sound stopped. I stood there, waiting for the next thing. That's when the vent made noise. Not in the bedroom. In the hallway, above the bathroom door. A short, dry scrape. Then a soft bump, like plastic hitting drywall. I turned my head and stared down the hall. My phone buzzed again. Motion detected. I looked at the feed. The hallway was empty, but the bottom edge of my door moved, not opening, just flexing like pressure was being put on it from the outside. Then the chain rattled, not from the door being pulled, from the frame being hit. A dull thump, then another. I realized what he was doing. He wasn't trying to pick the lock. He was trying to break the chain bracket out of the frame. I moved forward, flashlight up. I stopped 3 feet from the door, staring at the chain. The bracket jumped with the next hit. The screws held, but the wood around them looked like it was giving, just a little. A third hit. The bracket shifted. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I grabbed my phone with my other hand and dialed 911. My fingers slipped on the screen. I hit the wrong number, backed out, tried again. While it rang, I heard him laugh. Not loud, just a short breath of a laugh right on the other side of the door. Like this was fun. The operator picked up. I couldn't speak at first. My voice wouldn't come. Then I forced it out. "Someone is trying to get into my apartment," I said. "Right now. He's at the door." The operator started asking questions. Address, name. Was I armed? Was the door locked? I answered in pieces, staring at the chain like it was the only thing holding my life together. The vent scraped again. Closer. Not in my bedroom, not far away. Right above me. I looked up. The bathroom vent grill shook. Just once. Then again. A slow, careful shake, like someone testing it from the other side. My hands went numb. I understood it in one ugly second. The door was a distraction. He'd been working the vent. The operator was still talking. I barely heard her. I backed into the bathroom, flashlight up, eyes locked on the vent grill. The metal trembled again. Then one screw turned. A fraction. Like it was being loosened from the other side. I whispered, "He's in the vents." And then behind me, the chain bracket tore. A sharp crack from the front door. The sound of wood splitting. The chain held for half a second more, then it ripped free. And the door slammed inward against the chain, leaving a gap I could see through. A dark shape pressed into it, and a voice, closer than it should have been, said, "Now open it." The door slammed inward against the chain. A gap opened, just wide enough to see the hallway light, wide enough to see movement. A shoulder pushed into the opening, then a hand. Fingers searching for the chain, trying to hook it and tear it off. I stepped back, flashlight raised. I could see part of his face through the gap now. Not clear, just skin, one eye, and the edge of a grin. His eye wasn't wide or angry. It was focused, patient, like he'd rehearsed this. He shoved again. The chain bracket had already ripped loose. It was hanging by one screw. The last bit of wood was splitting. I heard the operator in my phone, tinny and far away. She kept telling me to stay back, stay in a safe room. Officers were on the way. I backed toward the bathroom, keeping the flashlight up. The vent above the sink rattled. Not a tremble this time, a hard shake. The screw turned again, then another. The grill shifted down a fraction. like someone had a grip on it. My head went cold. There were two problems now, the door and the vent, and I was alone. The chain snapped. It didn't break clean. The last screw tore out and the metal whipped against the door with a sharp clang. The door swung open. He was there. Close enough that my first thought wasn't who. It was how fast. He wore a dark hoodie, work gloves, something thin and metal in his right hand. Not a big knife, more like a narrow blade, something meant for corners and screws. He didn't rush me. He stepped in like he belonged there. Then he looked past me, straight down the hall, toward the bathroom, like he expected it to open. I swung the flashlight as hard as I could. It hit his forearm. He grunted and jerked back. The blade clattered to the floor. He recovered fast. Too fast. He lunged, reaching for my wrist. I backed up and kicked at his knee. My foot connected. He stumbled. I didn't stay to fight. I ran. I grabbed my phone off the couch as I passed. I didn't even think. My body just moved. I went for the front door. He caught my shirt from behind and yanked. The fabric tore. I slipped free and slammed into the hallway outside my apartment. The building felt unreal. Too quiet. Too normal. Behind me, his foot hit the threshold. Then the bathroom vent inside my apartment crashed. A loud metal drop. Like the grill finally came loose. I didn't look back. I sprinted down the stairs barefoot. I hit the next landing and almost fell. I caught myself on the railing and kept going. Someone shouted from below. A door opened. A light flicked on. I yelled, "Call the police!" even though I was already on the phone. At the bottom of the stairs, I hit the mail area and turned toward the front entrance. The glass door was locked. Of course it was. My hands shook so badly I missed the handle twice. Then I heard steps behind me. Not running. Walking fast. Controlled. I spun and raised the flashlight again. It wasn't him. It was an older man in a t-shirt, eyes wide, holding his own phone up. "Are you okay?" he said. I couldn't get words out. I just pointed up the stairs. He looked, then stepped in front of me like a shield. That's when I heard sirens. 2 minutes later, lights flashed through the lobby windows. Officers pushed in. They asked questions fast. My name, my unit. Did he have a weapon? Was anyone hurt? I kept saying the same thing. "He's in 3C! He's in 3C!" They went up. I stayed in the lobby, shaking so hard my jaw hurt. When they came back down, their faces told me everything. They didn't find him. 3C was empty. No furniture, no clothes, no food, no bed. No signs of someone living there. Just dust. And a screwdriver set on the floor near the vent cover. They did find something else. In my apartment, the bathroom vent grill had been pulled down. The inside was scratched, fresh, like someone had been working it for days. And on the tile beneath it was a single work glove. Dark fabric, the same kind I saw on his hands. Inside that glove was a strip of paper, folded small. 2 words, written in the same neat handwriting. Next time. I moved out the same day. I didn't pack. I didn't sleep. I didn't go back alone. A friend helped me grab what mattered. The rest I left. The police said they would look into it. They took my clips. They took the notes. They took the glove. They gave me a case number. They told me to call if anything happened again. But for weeks after, every time my phone rang early, my stomach turned. And every time I heard air move through a vent, I pictured a screw turning. A fraction, then another. And I knew something I didn't want to know. He hadn't failed. He had practiced, and he had learned where I lived.
Recovered tape number 01. Closing log. Playback ends at unknown. Referenced items include 2 handwritten notes, door camera clips, 1 work glove. Case status, open. End of file.